Hello toppers, welcome back to the channel. So today our topic is circulation. So from the chapter life processes, make sure you have your NCERT and your notes. Please write down each and every point, even if it is mentioned in your NCERT, because writing will improve your memory skills and it will help you retain longer. So first of all, we will start by defining circulation. So what is circulation? So circulation is a process by which various substances are transported throughout the body. What substance? It might be either respiratory gases, or it might be nutrition or minerals, or it might be either wastes. So through which medium is it transported? It is transported through a medium known as blood. Yeah, we are very familiar to it. So blood. First of all, we will define what is blood. It might be so blood is a fluid connective tissue. Fluid connective tissue and what are the components of the blood. So components of the blood is mainly composed of two main things. It might be either plasma, it is plasma, and various cells. These cells are also called as corpuscles. So corpuscles, please write each and everything in your notes. Okay, so the blood is consist of plasma and the cells. Now what is the function of this plasma? So plasma is the fluid component of the blood. Okay, so all the cells, fluid component, and all the cells will remain suspended in the plasma. What is present in the plasma? So it might be either proteins, amino acid, it might be either glucose, various nitrogenous waste, it might be either minerals, the blood cells, and clotting factors. Okay, write each and every fact, point of view of knowledge. These will be helpful and this will also help you to crack your boards. So plasma, we have talked about plasma. Now it is time to talk about the cells. So there might be three types of cell present: 1, 2, and 3. It might be either RBC, WBC, or it might be either platelets. Okay, RBC also stands for red blood cells or red blood corpuscles. Okay, and WBC stands for white blood cells or white blood corpuscles. Now what is the function of RBC? Since we have discussed from the chapter of respiration that the respiratory gases are transported through hemoglobin, but where is this hemoglobin present? So hemoglobin is present in this RBC, and inside the hemoglobin we have our respiratory gases O2 and CO2. So RBC's main function is to transport respiratory gases. Now what is the function of WBC? So WBC is concerned with the defense. So WBCs are concerned with defense, and what are the platelets concerned with? So platelets are concerned with the clotting of blood, wound healing. Okay, so now since we have discussed the components of the blood, now let us discuss the function of the blood. Okay, so what is the function of the blood? It is quite simple. Function of the blood, it is concerned with the transportation of various substance. Okay, so it is concerned with the transportation of various substance. Now since the blood is very important for our body, we need a mechanism and a pump which ensures that the blood is continuously circulating inside our body. So we need a pump, and we have a pump in the form of our heart. So let us discuss about the heart. So heart, what is the size of the heart? The heart is heart is of the size of a fist, mutti. Okay, so heart is the size of a fist, and it is a muscular organ. What type of organ? Muscular organ. Now what are the composition, or how is the heart divided? So heart is divided into four chambers. Okay, four chambers, and the naming of the chambers is quite simple. It is named as right atrium and right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. Okay, now let us try to draw a schematic diagram of the heart, that how a heart looks. This is just a schematic diagram to show you people how does the heart appear with all its chambers. Okay, so first of all, let us suppose that this is our right atrium. Besides it, we have our left atrium. Okay, now below right atrium we have our right ventricle, and besides it we have our left ventricle. Now when we try to draw the wall, the atrium have a small wall and the ventricles have a thicker wall. Why? Since the ventricles have to pump the blood to a longer distance, so we will keep the wall thicker, just like this. So let us label it. We have our right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. Okay, so now the right atrium and the right ventricle, they are separated by a valve, and this valve is known as tricuspid valve. Okay, since it has three cusps, and the left atrium and the left ventricle is separated by a valve which is known as bicuspid valve, because it has only two cusps. Okay, so now let us discuss the pathway through which the blood circulates through these chambers. Okay, so the pathway through which the blood circulates through these chambers. Now the blood, first of all we will start from the lungs. So let us represent lungs over here with blue color. So we will represent lungs. Okay, now we will start by lungs, and the function of the lungs is to oxygenate the deoxygenated blood. So the deoxygenated blood gets oxygenated, and from here the lungs, the blood will enter the left atrium through a set of vessels known as pulmonary veins. So let us write pulmonary veins. Now what? So these pulmonary veins, they carry the oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atrium. So it will enter the left atrium. Now from the left atrium, through this bicuspid valve, the blood will enter into the left ventricle. Now from this left ventricle, the blood will reach the whole body. Since the left ventricle has to pump the blood to the whole body, it has a quite thicker wall and it is quite muscular. And the vessel that does this work, the vessel that takes this responsibility, is known as aorta. Quite important vessel is known as aorta. And through this, the oxygenated blood will move to the whole body. Okay. Now the fact about aorta is that to the whole body. Now the fact about the aorta is that aorta is the biggest vessel or the thickest vessel. So please write it, biggest vessel. Write each and every point. Everything is important, and writing will help you retain longer. So aorta is the biggest vessel, and it takes the responsibility of transporting the blood to the whole body. Now the cells of the body, they will utilize this blood, and once they utilize this blood, they will take away all the oxygen and add CO2 to the blood. So now the blood gets deoxygenated. So this deoxygenated blood will come again to the heart. It will come back to the heart through two main vessels. It will be this inferior vena cava and this superior vena cava. Okay. Now where does these vessels open? Superior vena cava. They open directly into the right atrium and this inferior vena cava. Okay. So the deoxygenated blood through the whole body will enter into the heart through the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. Okay. So once they enter into the right atrium, the blood from the right atrium will enter into the right ventricle through this tricuspid valve. Okay, since it has three cusps, 1, 2, and 3, it is called as tricuspid valve, and through this tricuspid valve, it will enter into the right ventricle. Okay, now from the right ventricle, the blood is supposed to go to the lung for getting oxygenated. Okay, so we will draw a new vessel which takes the blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. So it is known as pulmonary artery, and it moves out of the right ventricle, comes out of the heart, and then divides into two parts. Since we have two lungs, both on each side, so the pulmonary artery will take the blood from the right ventricle, deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. So let us show the path. Okay, so it will take the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. In the lungs, it will get oxygenated, and through these pulmonary veins, it will come back. Let us label the pulmonary artery. So it is pulmonary artery. Anything that has the word pulmonary along with it means that it is associated with lungs. Okay, so pulmonary in Latin, the word pulmon means lungs. So anything which has pulmonary with it, it means that it is associated with lungs. Okay. Now, since we have discussed the pathway of circulation, we will discuss the mechanism that how the blood is circulated and which chamber contracts when. So now, in order to discuss the mechanism of the circulation, we need to be familiar with two new terms. It is systole. Systole. Please write it. Systole and diastole. Systole simply means in our layman language is contraction. So contraction. If you write these terms in your answer sheet, then it will be more impressive. So systole in our layman language means contraction, and diastole means simply relaxation. So relaxation. Okay. Now what does happens is that during the first part of the circulation, both the atria gets contracted. That is, both the atria undergo systole. So we have atrial systole. During this, both the atria will contract, and the blood contained in this atria will move towards the ventricles. So blood from the right atria will move to the right ventricle, and from the left atria will move to the left ventricle. Now after this atrial systole, we will have ventricular systole. So now both the ventricles will get contracted. Now since ventricles are much more muscular than these atria, due to this, the ventricles are capable of carrying the blood or pushing the blood to a very large distance. So now during this ventricular systole, both the ventricles will undergo contraction, and due to this, the blood from the right ventricle will go to the lungs through these our pulmonary veins, pulmonary artery, and through our left ventricle, the blood will go to the body through our aorta. Aorta is the biggest vessel of our body. It is an artery. So aorta is the biggest vessel of our body, and it is an artery. So now, after the ventricles get contracted, all the four chambers of our body will undergo relaxation. So after ventricular systole, we will have a joint diastole. So during this, the atria are also relaxed and the ventricles are also relaxed. This leads to the filling of blood in the atria, and from the atria, the blood directly goes into the ventricle. So let us write each and every step of it, and we will also write the time duration. So first of all, we will have atrial systole, then we will have ventricular systole, and then we will have joint diastole. Okay. The duration of atrial systole is just 0.1 second. Yes, only just 0.1 second. And the duration of ventricular systole is 0.3 second. And the duration of joint diastole is bigger than both of these. It is 0.4 second. Now how to remember it? 0.1 plus 0.3 is 0.4, and the total duration of one cardiac cycle is 0.8. Okay, one cardiac cycle will take 0.8 second to get completed. So now we will calculate the pulse rate according to it. Since it takes 0.8 second to complete one cardiac cycle, then during the whole 60-second phase, how much cardiac cycle will be completed? We need to find it out. So it will be just 60 upon 0.8. It will be somewhere around 72. Okay, so 72 is the normal pulse rate. Okay, whereas normal range might vary somewhere between 70 to 85. Not a problem. Okay, this is also extra, but you need to write this in your answer sheet. It will make your answer sheet much more impressive. Okay, so 72 is the normal pulse rate, and the range stands from 70 to 85. Okay, now since we have discussed about the mechanism of the circulation, now we will discuss the types of circulation. So let us try to draw the heart again. Now these are the four chambers, two atria and two ventricle. Okay, this is just a schematic diagram, don't get horrified. So now let us represent lungs over here. We will have lungs over here and other body organs or tissue. So this is body. Okay, now what happens that we will depict blue color for our oxygenated deoxygenated blood and red color for our oxygenated blood. Okay, red color for our oxygenated blood and blue color for deoxygenated blood. So what happens that the lungs oxygenate the blood, that is, it adds the O2 to the blood and removes the CO2 from the blood. So now once the blood gets oxygenated, it re-enters the heart, or it re-enters the circulation through the pulmonary vein, and through the pulmonary vein it will enter the left ventricle. Since it is oxygenated, I am drawing it with the red pen. Okay, so it enters into the left atrium. From the left atrium it will enter into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle through the aorta it will go out and enter into the body, or it will supply to the body parts. Okay, now the body parts, they will utilize the blood and get the blood converted into deoxygenated. Okay, so the deoxygenated form of the blood, then it re-enters the circulation through superior and inferior vena cava, and through this it enters the right atrium. Now from the right atrium the blood goes into the right ventricle through tricuspid valve. Okay, now from the tricuspid valve blood now moves into the lungs through what? Pulmonary artery. So now it will go to the pulmonary artery. Okay, wait, something like this. Okay, so now the blood has went to the pulmonary artery. So now we have two pathways of circulation. One is from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart, and other is from the heart to the body and back to the heart. Okay, so this type of circulation is also called as double circulation. Now you might ask that what is the requirement of this double circulation. Okay, so the double circulation is required to maintain separate pathways for this oxygenated blood and this deoxygenated blood. You might have noticed that this oxygenated and deoxygenated blood never gets mixed. This is to ensure highest possible efficiency of our body system. And why do we need the highest possible efficiency? Because we are humans, and just like us, there are certain other vertebrates. They need a mechanism to maintain their constant body temperature. So maintenance of body temperature, it demands us to keep the pathways separate for both the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. This will ensure that they do not get mixed up and the temperature of the body remains constant. Now, the characteristic of our humans and certain other vertebrates to keep the body temperature constant is known as homeothermicity. Or else we can say that we are homeothermic people. Okay, now what is the homeothermic people means? That they are capable of maintaining their body temperature. You might have seen that whether it is winter or summer, our body temperature remains constant to 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so we have a characteristic to maintain normal body temperature, and for that we need separate pathways for both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Okay, now what happens for other organisms such as invertebrates or reptiles or amphibians? They do not need this characteristic to maintain their body temperature constant, so they are called as poikilothermic. Okay, they are known as poikilothermic. And since they have no need of maintaining separate pathways for O2 and CO2 containing blood, separate pathways for oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, they do not have 4-chambered heart. They might either have 2-chambered heart or 3-chambered heart. The reptiles and amphibians have 3-chambered heart. Who does contain 3-chambered heart? It is reptiles. Keep on writing, or at least keep your NCERT with you. This is all from NCERT and something above your NCERT, and it is required for your board preparation, for your Excel marks, for your better marks. So reptiles and amphibians, they have 3-chambered heart. And what occurs for the fishes, for the Pisces? So 2-chambered heart for the fishes or the class Pisces. They contain only 2-chambered heart. The blood Let us write the pathway for the fishes also. So the blood goes to the gills. You might know that the gills are organs of their oxygenation of blood. So blood might go to the gills. From the gills, the blood gets oxygenated, and then it enters the heart, and from the heart it goes to the body, and from the body it will again go to the gills. Okay, so this is called a single circulation. We vertebrates follow double circulation. These invertebrates or the lower class animals follow this single circulation. Okay. Now, since we have discussed the different types of circulation, now we will discuss about different types of vessels that carry the blood to and away from heart. Okay. So let us discuss about the vessels. Now, what types of vessel do we have? We know at least two types of vessel. Okay. Now we know these two. Which are they? This is artery and this is vein. Okay. Good. So we have another type of vessel known as capillary, but we will discuss about it later. So now let us try to discuss the differences between arteries and the veins. Okay. Okay. So now let us discuss the difference. The difference between the arteries and the veins is a most timely question, and it has a higher chance of getting asked. Okay. So we have extensive differences. We will try to write all of them. Okay. So arteries, the main function of arteries to carry blood away from heart. Okay. It is a very peculiar characteristic. It is always present that each and every artery it will carry blood away from heart, and no artery has ever been found that it carries blood towards the heart. Okay, so arteries that carry blood away from heart and veins that carry the blood towards the heart. And next difference is that since the arteries carry the blood away from the heart and inside the arteries the blood is under high pressure, then so because of this the arteries have very thick wall. The veins have very thin wall. Okay. What else? The lumen. Since the wall is thick, the lumen of artery is narrow, whereas the lumen of veins is wide. Okay. Now what is lumen? Okay. I will explain what is lumen. Let us suppose that this is an artery, and this is an artery, and this is the wall of artery. Okay. So now the space in the between where the blood is carried is known as lumen. This is the lumen. Okay. So now this lumen, since the wall is thicker in the arteries, the lumen will be narrow. But since the wall is thinner in the veins, the lumen will be wider. You can see. Okay. Now, since we have discussed about the lumen, why are the walls thicker? The walls are thicker in the artery because it is under high pressure of blood. So blood is under high pressure in artery, whereas in the vein, the blood is at low pressure. Now, where are the arteries located? So arteries are found deep inside the body. Okay, arteries are deeply situated, whereas the veins are superficial. I mean that the veins, they can be easily accessed. The veins are quite nearer to the skin, whereas the artery are quite deep to the skin. We need to penetrate various muscles to reach the artery. Okay, so the arteries are deeply situated, whereas the veins are superficially situated. Okay, now what might be the color of the arteries? I am talking about the color of the vessel itself. Whether it might be artery or a vein, the color of the blood will always remain red, but the color of the vessel might vary. So arteries are generally reddish in color. Okay, but the veins are bluish in color. The blood always remains red. That is a fact. Okay, bluish in color. Okay, now what else? Then we have that what type of blood does artery carry? We all know artery generally carries oxygenated blood, but we have an exception, oxygenated. Do you remember that pulmonary artery? Over here, pulmonary artery. This is the pulmonary artery, and it carried the blood away from heart. Okay, no doubt it carried the blood away from heart, but it had the deoxygenated blood. Okay, so this is the exception that pulmonary artery carries the blood away from the heart. Okay, it is the one and only artery that carries the blood away from the heart. So let us write the exception. Same is the for the vein. Okay, so pulmonary artery. Now, what does the vein carry? Vein carry deoxygenated blood from the whole body. But exception is pulmonary vein. Now, if we talk about valves, then valves are never present in any artery, but in veins we find valves. Okay, so let us write valves. No valves are present, but in veins we do find valves. So valves present. Now, what else? Then we have the lumen. Okay, we discussed. So if the arteries get punctured, And since the blood is in high pressure, the blood will come out in a large quantity. So large quantity of blood spills in small time, or veins may not that much large. Okay, so I think we have discussed too much of points. Let us count. We have written 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 points of difference between arteries and veins. More than enough. This will help you in your codes and for further also. So now, since we have discussed the difference between the arteries and the veins, now let us discuss how and in what are they divided. So artery, it comes out from the heart, and then it is divided into small branches known as arterioles. Okay, now these arterioles, they are further divided into arterioles they are further divided into further small branches. These are known as capillaries. Wait, so these are the capillaries. What is the function of these capillaries? That capillaries are just one cell thick. The thickness of the walls of the capillaries is so thin that the blood and other nutrition can come out of it, and these capillaries will provide nutrition to the cells over here. So let us suppose that we have some cells over here. These are cells, and they will get nutrition from the capillaries, and other waste materials get diffused into the capillaries, and now the capillaries will further move on and they will unite together. The capillaries will unite together to form small vascular structure known as venules. So the capillaries unite to form venules. Now these venules further unite to form small veins. Okay, these venules further unite and they form veins, and these small veins ultimately form vena cava. Do you remember that superior and inferior vena cava? So yes, these veins then further unite to form bigger vessels known as vena cava, and these vena cava then gets emptied into the heart. Okay, so let us label again everything from the beginning. So we have over here artery. Artery get divided into arteriole. Arteriole get further divided into capillaries, and this capillary will get united. Since the work of this capillaries is done, the work of the capillary is to provide nutrition to the cells. They are just one cell thick. The thickness of their wall is so thin that the nutrition and the various important components from the blood can diffuse out and get entered into the cell, and other waste material from the cells get entered into the capillaries. Now since the work of this capillaries is done, it won't further divide, it will get united. The capillaries get united to form venules. Okay, so we will have venules. These venules will further unite to form veins, and these veins will further unite to form vena cava. Okay, now what happens that if there is a breakage in this blood circulation? Okay, let us discuss. Let us suppose that here there is the breakage. So what will happen that the blood will kind of spill off. The blood will come out. So in order to avoid it, since blood is very important for our life, in order to avoid it, we have a new type of mechanism, a very extensive type of mechanism. It is known as clotting. Remember the platelets? We discussed the blood cells, platelets. So here comes the role of the platelets. Whenever there is a leakage in the vessels, the platelets get aggregated. What do I mean? That the platelets, they get aggregated with each other, and they will together occlude the clot. These are the platelets, and these will together occlude the clot so that no further blood is leaked out of the vessel or the punctured vessel. Okay, so this is the function of the platelets, and platelets are quite important. Whenever we get injured, we see that red rash formed. That is just because of these platelets, and these platelets get aggregated and they will stop the leakage of blood and prevent the loss of the blood. Okay, so now since we have discussed about the platelets, now another thing that happens at this very microvascular level is that since the plasma, do you remember the plasma, it will get oozed out, it will get out of these capillaries. Since these capillaries are too thin, the plasma will come out and it will get mixed inside the cells. So the cells will kind of float in this plasma, and this plasma that has came out, plasma after coming out of the vessels, plasma, once it gets out of the vessel, it is known as lymph. The composition of lymph is just as similar to the plasma, but it has some it does not have some proteins, and it has high amount of nutrition. Okay, so lymph is very high in nutrition. Function of the lymph. So let us discuss the function. What the lymph does is, the waste that the cell just dumps out in the surrounding, the lymph collects the waste, and together with the lymph and other the waste, it also collects various hormones, and these hormones and the waste are trained along with the lymph. Now where is the lymph drained? So the lymph that is oozed out of the capillaries, it gets drained into certain lymph vessels. and now these lymph vessels will ultimately get drained into the veins. So what will we have is that ultimately all the waste has gotten into the circulation. It will be either filtered by the kidney or it will be either excreted along with our feces. Okay, feces means the stool. It will either get excreted by the kidney or it will be either excreted by our stool, and the hormones, they will do their function by acting at various cells at the other different site of the body. For example, suppose that the lymph has passed from a gland known as thyroid. The lymph will collect the hormone and it will pass the hormone to the other part of the body, and here the hormone will act and perform various functions. Okay, so now since we are done with the lymph, we need to understand is the what is the allocation of transportation in the plants. So plants, they need to transport two major things, and those are, yes, those are water, minerals, and the other is food. Okay, food, it would be better if we say that metabolic products, not just food, metabolic products or photosynthetic products, they needs to get transported. So there are different system for the transportation of water and food. The water is transported through a special system known as xylem. Okay, now what does xylem transport? Then xylem does transport two main things. It is water and the minerals, both of it the plant obtained from the soil. Okay, now what kind of mineral? It might be either nitrogen, phosphorus, or other oils, but the nitrogen and the phosphorus are the most important. Okay, so nitrogen and phosphorus are the most important, and the function of the xylem is to transport water and minerals. Now what are the components of the xylem? So xylem is made up of tracheids, yes, xylem tracheids, and xylem vessels. Okay, these are the components of the xylem, and what is the mechanism by which the xylem gets the water and the minerals transported? So what happens that, let us suppose that these are the roots of a tree. Okay, now what happens that the cells of the roots of the tree, they will actively take in some ions in the sense nitrogen ions, phosphorus ions. They will actively take in. What does actively means? That they will utilize energy for this uptake. So energy will be utilized and these ions will get into the cells. Okay, now since the uptake of ion will imbalance the osmotic pressure, behind these ions water will also go in order to maintain the osmotic pressure. So water will also enter. This will lead to formation of a column of pressure will get developed. This will push the minerals and the water. This will push the minerals and the water above in the xylem, and this will lead to formation of a pressure column, also known as root pressure. Okay, now this root pressure is enough for small plants, but what happens if the plant is too tall? So the tall plants have developed a new procedure for it. It is also known as transpiration. So let us suppose that this is a tall plant. So the leaves of the tall plant, they will lead to loss of water by evaporation. So what will happen, that water will get lost by evaporation, and this will lead to deficiency of water over here. So since there is deficiency of water over here and we have plenty of water over here due to root pressure, in order to maintain the osmotic pressure evenly throughout the plant, the water from here will rush upwards. So this will form a column of pressure, and it is known as transpiration pressure. Okay, what is it? It is called transpiration pressure. Now this transpiration pressure is effective only during the day. Why? Because only during the day the stomata gets opened, and this leads to the release of water and a transpiration pool. Transpiration pressure, rather we will write transpiration pool. Okay, so transpiration pool. So the transpiration pool is most effective during daytime, and during night time we will have this our root pressure night time. Okay, so since we have discussed about the transportation of water and minerals, now it is time for us to discuss the transportation of foods. Okay, food, what do we mean by food over here? Food is not just food that we eat, it is the food of the plants, and it is actually the metabolic products. So metabolic products, I keep my handwriting big only for you people so that you can understand it. So food are actually the metabolic products, or we can better write as photosynthetic product. Okay, so how is the food, and from where does it origin? The transportation, from where does it origin, and where does get it completed? So what is the destination of this transport? Okay, So the transport of food does not only occur from the leaves to the other parts of the plant, it might also occur from the storage area of the plants to other parts of the plant. So let us suppose that during the normal lifespan of the plant, the leaves keep on producing the food, and the food gets stored into the storage areas. But during the spring season, there is a necessity to form new flowers and other reproductive organs. So during this time, the food from the storage area is mobilized to the part of the new plant, or the part where the formation of flowers and the seeds gets occurred. So it is not only necessary that the transport of food occurs from leaves to the other parts of plant. It is bidirectional. It might also go upward and it might also go downward. So now let's discuss the mechanism. What happens that the phloem, okay, so let us discuss what vessel is used to transport the fruits. So first of all, we will discuss about the phloem. So phloem is the vessel which is used for the transportation of the food particles. Phloem, and it is composed of, so the components are sieve tubes and the companion cells. Not going into the detail, okay. So the components are sieve tubes and the companion cells. Now what is the mechanism of the transportation? So now we will discuss the mechanism. Here also, the sucrose and other high molecular weight are actively transported into the phloem, okay. So sucrose is actively transported into the phloem using energy. So this will lead to development of the osmotic pressure inside the phloem. Due to development of this osmotic pressure, water will also diffuse. Due to diffusion of this water, this will lead to diffusion of water. Due to diffusion of this water, the pressure inside the phloem component increases, and this leads to formation of a push, and this push will leads to the translocation of various food particles. And since this leads to the translocation, change in the location, this procedure is also known as translocation. The most important part is that it is energy dependent, okay. So this finishes our topic of circulation from chapter life processes. The next topic is excretion, and we will soon finish it off. It is just a small topic, and then we will start with our new chapter, that is control and coordination. Okay, thank you.